Summer Rose, biological mother of Ruby Rose and mother of Yang Xiaolong, a member of the legendary Team Stark and a huge influence on many of the characters we've seen in the show already, ranging from characters still mourning her loss, while others are inspired by her memory and attempting to follow in her footsteps. She's had a lot of influence on the show despite being dead for about 10 years. Or is she? For your consideration, I propose Summer Rose isn't dead, but a main character. In fact, she's our main villain. I'm Nathan, and for your consideration, is Summer Salem? Let's start off with our first piece of evidence. The only people who talk about Summer as if she's dead are Yang and Ruby. And even then, they never actually say she's dead.
One day she left for a mission and never came back.
You sound just like your mother.
Now you're probably already typing this is some pretty flimsy evidence, and you would be correct. So let's start looking at some big evidence. To this we go to the Volume 3 soundtrack and the song Divide, Salem's theme, which plays during her reveal at the end of Volume 3 and during her introduction during Volume 4. The song starts with a high-pitched female, singing about how Ozpin's plan will fail. However, when we reach the middle of the song, the voice becomes lower and mixed with a male's voice. The lyrics turn to straight taunts telling Ozpin how she's going to watch his efforts fail and those around him die. We then return to the high-pitched female voice from the start of the song, but instead of taunting, the lyrics are accusing and berating Ozpin. These lyrics are definitely accusing Ozpin of tricking and using people for his war, perhaps saying that she's not as evil compared to him. But the song introduces an important theme for the rest of this theory: sacrifice. Which takes us to the song of the same name, Sacrifice, from Volume 2. This song we can clearly assume to be Salem talking to the wizard. However, one point of the song feels off from the rest of the song. Death is never what it seems. Now, as we guessed from Volume 4 and were confirmed in Volume 5, the wizard acts similar to the maidens, jumping from body to body as each one dies. However, as far as we know, only the wizard actually retains their memories from their past self. Maidens could also have this ability, but as of right now, we're being led to believe that they don't have past knowledge, as the Spring Maiden before Raven wouldn't have needed to be trained if she remembered her past lives.
He'll inherit my muscle memory in time, but practice will expedite the process.
Because like Oscar, she would have just absorbed the skills from her past lives. Now, using this information, it's very likely that given her opposing status to the wizard, Salem also follows the similar rules of the wizard's mind transference. Why would I argue that? Let's hear that section of the song again. Given this, I would argue that just as the wizard has been jumping from body to body during the course of this conflict, so too has Salem. But what does all this have to do with Summer Rose? Well, let's take a look at the different Red Like Roses songs. Each one has various elements of interaction between Ruby and Summer.
Make you understand the reasons why I did it. Want you to know that for eternity I'm shattered. I didn't have a choice, I did what I had to do. I made a sacrifice, I'm forced to make a sacrifice on you.
From these lyrics, we can clearly tell that Summer didn't want Ruby to be following in her footsteps and becoming a huntress. But what's more, she was forced into making a sacrifice, one that she chose to make for Ruby. But back to the song Sacrifice. At this point, if we continue to assume it's Salem who's speaking, then the lyrics feel oddly tame for her, as the song is filled with more disgust rather than hatred. But let's assume, instead of Salem, it's Summer singing.
Did the things you thought you should, all the things they said were good. All your faith in ancient ways leaves you trapped inside a maze. Take the lives of those you need, throw the depth and break the sea.
Now this sounds much more believable coming from Summer's point of view, but we have one more part of the song that nails it firmly as Summer singing.
Truth will rise, revealed by mirror eyes.
As of this point, the only people who appear to know about the Silver Eyes are Ozpin, Crow, and Salem's crew.
The girl with the silver eyes.
Yes. We've dealt with their kind before.
Otherwise, every student in Beacon would have been freaking out over the fact that RWBY has silver eyes.
The night you met Ozpin, what was the first thing he said to you?
I don't know. I think it was something about...
Silver eyes. You're special the same way your mom was. You see, the creatures of Grimm, the most fearsome monsters mankind had ever encountered, were afraid of those silver-eyed warriors.
But there's one other person who has silver eyes, Summer Rose, who has one silver eye poking out from under her hood. But there's still more to back this up. Let's take a look at some height comparisons. Using this photo of Team Stark, you can get a rough idea that Summer comes up to about Raven's chin, but judging from her posture and the way her cloak is hanging, she appears to be leaning over a little bit. This would make her a little bit taller. Now let's take a look at some of these scenes between Raven and Cinder. The two of them are about the same height, and finally let's take a look at the scene of Cinder and Salem. Even though Cinder doesn't come up to the same height of the chair as Salem does, she's also staying a bit back from the chair, giving her perspective a height difference of being shorter. Alternatively, we could look at this shot of Salem as she passes behind Hazel. Then we compare Hazel's height to Adam, then Adam to Mercury, who's also the same height as Raven. Based on these estimates, we can say that Salem and Summer are roughly the same height. After all this evidence, it's maybe a little bit more believable that Salem could be Summer. However, let's add one more little piece of evidence here to kind of keep the theory going. Let's look at the first episode of Volume 4. Salem is catching everyone up to date on the information that just happened and then gives them all their orders. All of them were ordered to do different things that forward her plans, clearly ignoring the fact that RWBY, a silver-eyed warrior, just made her plans much harder by freezing a giant dragon and crippling her Fall Maiden. Only when pressed by Cinder does she change her plans to go after RWBY. She gives this mission to her assassin Tyrion, however, instead of having him kill the target, which he's best at, giving his scorpion poison, she tells him to bring the girl back to her. And when Tyrion comes back after having failed his mission, he tells Salem that he succeeded in killing Crow, someone who we can guess has been thwarting their efforts for a while, given how he stopped the death of the Fall Maiden, and was well known to Tyrion. But upon learning that Crow is dead, Salem isn't happy and says she's displeased with Tyrion, perhaps for killing an old member of her team. But what do you think? Did Summer sacrifice herself to Salem? That's just something for your consideration.